The content of this program represents the opinions, research, and observation of the host and his assessment of scientific evidence available at this time. None of the statements, claims, techniques, dietary guidelines, or supplements mentioned in this program have been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The information contained herein is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for standard care provided by medical practitioners. Any application of the advice presented here is at the listener's own discretion or risk. The information should not be used for self-diagnosis or application. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before beginning any new nutritional, exercise, or lifestyle improvement program. The host and this station disclaim any responsibility for any adverse effects arising from the use or application of information contained in this program. Now broadcasting from his Nutritional Command Center deep in the heart of Victoria, Texas, charging through the swamp of misconceptions, deception, and myths, bringing to you the newest cutting-edge scientific-based nutrition information so you can enjoy whole-spectrum health, here's the Paladin of nutrition and whole food expert, Labron Allen.
Good morning. It's Saturday, March 17th, 2012. Welcome to Health Alert. I'm your host, Labron Allen. Wow, so boy, there sure is a lot of news this week as well. It seems like it just keeps coming faster and faster as far as new health information. I'm looking forward to sharing some of that with you this morning. And we are going to also get into, in much better detail than we have in previous weeks, about cholesterol. I think you're going to find that quite interesting. Then, if we have time, we're going to be talking about another subject that is very important for many individuals. However, they may actually be unaware of it. So you're going to find that interesting if we have time on this show this morning. But first of all, let me give you some upcoming free health presentations. The topics of them, the next one, which is going to be on Tuesday, March the 27th at 7 p.m. Again, these are at the Hampton Inn on Navarro, just before you get to the overpass on the right-hand side. The topic is how to support your heart, cholesterol, and blood pressure naturally. Many people out there are having problems with heart or blood pressure. In fact, heart disease still remains the #1 killer in the United States, and that is with many, many millions of people being on statin medications. So part of what we're going to be discussing is what nutritional deficiencies may actually be contributing to some of these issues. Or another way of looking at it is what nutritional support is there that might be able to help you in your pursuit of better health, especially as it pertains to heart disease. And then, just to give you a heads up, the next free health presentation that we will have after March the 27th is going to be entitled, How to Feel Good Again. Now just think about that for a moment. How long has it been since you've actually felt good? For many people, it's been quite a while. They might remember back when they're 8 years old, that Saturday morning comes rolling around, they jump out of bed and hit the floor with anticipation of what's going to be happening over the weekend. And they're full of energy, and they're just looking forward with zeal as to what's going to be happening. But how long has it been for you? You know, many people now, over the weekend, come Saturday morning or Sunday morning, they want to sleep in as long as they can because they're just utterly exhausted. So at this seminar, we're going to be learning the reasons why many people always feel tired. They may lack purpose and motivation. And we want to give you a clear step-by-step program that will produce the result of great energy, clear thinking, and even slow your aging process. Again, that is going to be on Tuesday, April the 10th at 7 p.m., as always, at the Hampton Inn on Navarro. If you would like to contact me, you can do it several different ways. First of all, you can do it on Facebook. That address is facebook.com/natural.health.clinic. Again, that's facebook.com/natural.health.clinic. Also, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is NutriDoc35. That's Nutri, as in nutrition, NutriDoc35. One more time, it's NutriDoc35. As well as you can contact me through email at radiocomments@healthimprovementprograms.com. And if you would like to RSVP for any of these upcoming free health seminars, you can call Tanya at the front desk at 575-4683. Again, that number is 575-4683. I have a question from one of the listeners that I would like to go over. It's actually a very good question. And it simply is this: what is the difference in nutritionists? Now, there's many different kinds of health practitioners who practice nutrition. And so basically this listener wanted to know, what is the difference in training? What is the difference in the different certifications or names that these nutritionists work under? Now, a common nutritionist is entitled a registered dietitian. A registered dietitian basically has gone to a university. They've passed state exams on nutrition. These individuals are actually more of the mainstream nutritionists, so they're going to basically tell you what you hear every day about low-fat diet and that you need calcium and vitamin D for your bones, that cholesterol is bad for you, etc., etc. So they're going to dispense some common politically correct nutrition information, but that does not necessarily make it accurate. It doesn't necessarily make it what will actually help your body to be healthier. Now, many registered dietitians, they will work right with medical doctors. Many of them are used to create menus for hospitals, nursing homes, various independent school districts. And then some of these registered dietitians will also specialize in certain areas of practice, such as kidney dysfunction and different things like that. Then there are clinical nutritionists. Now, a clinical nutritionist is actually a health professional. Oftentimes, they will be a medical, chiropractic, or even a naturopathic doctor. These individuals will have taken extensive, usually hundreds and hundreds of hours of additional training, and then they have passed a national certification exam of some sort. Now, that is, by the way, an interesting distinction with most, let's say, the average medical doctor. You may be unaware of it, but most medical doctors are woefully untrained and uneducated concerning nutrition. Now, that may not be what you expect, but most of them maybe have 2 to 3 hours of instruction in nutrition, and oftentimes that is only if they have taken it as an elective. So these health professionals of various ilk, chiropractic, naturopathic, medical doctors, whatever they may be, they have, again, taken hundreds of hours of additional training. So a clinical nutritionist, what they are able to do is assess nutritional deficiencies that might be related to different disease conditions. Not what's necessarily causing that disease, but things that will help support an individual who's either experiencing those symptoms or individuals who are not experiencing those disease conditions as well. After they assess these deficiencies, what they will do is create dietary and supplemental, herbal, homeopathic, and even sometimes use bioidentical hormone programs that are custom designed to balance the inner environment of your body. Now, as we talk together, you will learn more and more about what it means to have a balanced internal environment. It's also known as homeostasis. And basically, in any kind of natural health care, regardless if it's a chiropractor or if it's an acupuncturist or if it is a naturally inclined medical doctor, what they are really after is finding a balanced and creating a balanced internal environment. So most clinical nutritionists are far more natural health oriented in their thinking and training than, say, a registered dietitian may be. Then there are just nutritionists. a nutritionist basically is a catch-all phrase or name that can describe someone who professes to know about nutrition. Now, the problem with this is that oftentimes there will be multi-level marketing companies that will hold, say, for example, an all-day workshop, training individuals to sell their products, and then those companies that are designed to sell you products will certify these individuals who have come to this all-day workshop as a nutritionist. Now, there may be others who call themselves nutritionists that are involved in fitness. Maybe they've read some books or taken online courses or sat through some hours of nutrition information as they've studied becoming, for example, a personal trainer. They may have done other forms of self-study, and they might even be dispensing so-called nutritional advice to other individuals. So if you are under the care of a person who calls themselves a nutritionist, then you really need to make certain of where they've been trained, how long they were trained, and the specific certifying body that accredited them their nutrition certification. Many of these people who call themselves nutritionists, they are not trained so that they can fully assess your biochemistry through proper testing and evaluation. So that is the difference in nutritionists. I hope that information helps you in your pursuit of natural health. Okay, on to the news now. The first bit of news that I'm going to discuss with you, it's from the Huffington Post. It is about a very, very large study that the Swiss government recently completed. It's about homeopathic medicine. Now, if you're not familiar with homeopathy has been around for a very, very long time. In fact, it's been around for at least 250 years. It was created by a medical doctor, a German medical doctor. His name was Samuel Hahnemann. And what he did was this, actually totally opposite to the way orthodox medicine works. For example, if you have a headache, you're going to go to your medical doctor. He's going to assess what your symptoms are and prescribe you a medication. Perhaps it's a pain type medication of some sort, and what that's going to do is block or inhibit or suppress something so it will relieve that pain. What homeopathy is basically the total opposite of that. So what Dr. Hahnemann did 250 years ago is he would have a patient who was ill, but he would find someone who is perfectly healthy, and he would begin introducing different kinds of substances to that healthy individual until he found the one substance which would induce the exact symptoms that the ill individual was experiencing. Once he found that exact substance, what he would then do is dilute that substance down very much into a tincture. And he would take that tincture and then he would give it to the ill person, and guess what? That ill individual would start improving. So that is the idea of homeopathy. Now, there are many detractors against homeopathy. In fact, the American Medical Association is one of them. And so it's just very interesting to find out what this government study, very long, very large government study, found regarding homeopathic medication. And it was this. In the final part of 2011, so again, very recent, the Swiss government's report on homeopathic medicine was the most comprehensive evaluation of homeopathic medicine ever written. What the report affirmed was that homeopathic treatment is both effective and cost-effective, and that homeopathic treatment should be reimbursed by Switzerland's National Health Insurance Program. Wow, can you believe that? Could you imagine your health insurance today covering homeopathic medication? That is not likely to happen anytime soon. Now, here's some specifics about what that Swiss report found. After they assessed quite a bit of preclinical, basic research, high-quality clinical studies, Again, they affirmed that homeopathic high potency seemed to induce regulatory effects. Now, remember what I said about homeostasis? That's what they're referring to here with the regulatory effects, that it created homeostasis or normalizing effects. And they also found that homeopathic medication created specific changes in cells and living organisms. The report also reported that 20 of the 22 systematic reviews of clinical research tested homeopathic medications. They detected at least a trend in favor of homeopathy. So that is a really interesting report that shows how effective homeopathic medication can be. Some of the most effective areas that they found that homeopathic medication may be able to support is with upper respiratory tract infections and allergic reactions of different kinds. So I use homeopathy quite a bit within my practice, along with herbs and nutrition, and so it's just really interesting to find that the Swiss government is now recommending that national health insurance cover that kind of treatment. So up next is a report from Science Daily. It's entitled, "The Effects of Environmental Toxicants Reach Down Through the Generations." This came out March the 2nd, 2012. So what this is actually talking about, what this entire study is showing, is that they are finding that different kinds of pesticides, fungicides, different kinds of chemicals are not only affecting that generation, the ones who actually induced with the exposure of these chemicals, not only that generation of animals affected by these kinds of chemicals, but also down through the next 3 generations of offspring due to the epigenetic effects within the animal's DNA. So this is really quite interesting. The different chemicals that they are finding, like I already said, is through pesticide, fungicide. Also, it includes jet fuel, dioxin, plastics, DEET, permethrin. All of these had these DNA epigenetic disease changing through generations. So the comment was from Dr. Skinner's was, "We didn't expect them all to have transgenerational effects, but all of them did." Person goes on to say, "I thought hydrocarbons would be negative, but it was positive as well." And further down the report, they have a comment that the field opens new ground in the study of how diseases develop. Well, that's not really true, because natural health practitioners have been helping the body deal with toxification as a perhaps link in disease for many, many decades, at least 9 decades that I'm aware of. So that is really not a new study, is it? So in the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about cholesterol, and I read to you certain quotes from a textbook of medical physiology showing that perhaps the common thinking regarding cholesterol was not necessarily true. And so we're going to be talking a little bit more about that this morning. Now, the 2 largest studies that are currently used to quote-unquote prove cholesterol is a reason or a cause of heart disease are called the Framingham and Tecumseh. Those are the 2 largest studies. So we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. We already discussed that if you eat cholesterol within the diet, that it does not increase cholesterol in the blood very much whatsoever. So that is the first thing that you always hear. What a medical doctor will commonly tell a patient is to go on a low-fat diet, make sure they don't eat red meat as much as they can, stay away from it, because then that will help lower their cholesterol levels, and indeed it does not. Now, there is one particular doctor who had much to comment on the Framingham study. In fact, he is the one who really got the idea of the diet heart, cholesterol heart theory going. from a paper in 1956. This doctor, his name is Ansel Keys, had this to say. He said, in the adult man, the serum cholesterol level is essentially independent of the cholesterol intake over the whole range of human diets. So that pretty much coincides with what the current medical textbook has to say. However, that was way back in 1956. Did he have anything different to say of more recent times? Well, in 1997, he had this to say. Same person, Ansel Keys, he says, there's no connection whatsoever between cholesterol in food and cholesterol in blood. Did you hear that? Ansel Keys, who is the person who had the most to say about the theory between cholesterol and heart disease, in fact, the one that is most used to prove that there is a connection and that you need to take a statin, he had to say in 1997 that there was no connection whatsoever between cholesterol in food and cholesterol in the blood. So the Tecumseh study basically found the same thing, that regardless of the amount of cholesterol in the food, it did very, very little to increase the cholesterol within the serum, within the blood. So that is very interesting. Further in that the Tecumseh study, the authors of that study had to say that serum cholesterol and triglyceride values were not positively correlated with the selection of dietary constituents. So again, what you ate had nothing to do with the amount of triglycerides and cholesterol within the blood. Now, Dr. William Castelli, in 1992, he was the director of the Framingham study, said this. He said, in Framingham, Massachusetts, the more saturated fat one ate, the more cholesterol one ate, the more calories one ate, the lower people's serum cholesterol. You heard that right, folks. The director of the Framingham study, the study that is used to prove that there is a connection between cholesterol and heart disease, he said that the more saturated fat, the more cholesterol, the more calories, the lower the individual's blood cholesterol level was. He went on to say, we found that the people who ate the most cholesterol, ate the most saturated fat, ate the most calories, weighed the least, and were the most physically active. Now, is that totally different than what you've heard? I would wager that indeed it is. So that begs the question, what creates high cholesterol levels? If it isn't what we eat, in fact, if eating saturated fat, if eating higher calories is not what creates higher cholesterol levels, then what is? Well, that's a very good question, and we're going to talk about exactly what it is. Basically, you have to look at what the body uses in order to create cholesterol. And really what happens is when there is more glucose, which is sugar, blood sugar, that's what glucose is. When there is more glucose than the liver can store, than your muscles can store, the body, because it's been brilliantly created, actually takes that remaining glucose that cannot be stored as something called glycogen within the liver or within the muscles, takes it back into the liver. Now, the problem with that is that if that glucose hangs out in the liver is going to have quite a problem. It's going to start having a fatty liver, which could become fatty liver disease. Now, fatty liver disease is most commonly seen with alcoholics, but there is enormously high increase in the rate of non-alcoholic fatty acid liver disease. And that is due to the very reason that we're discussing right now, as far as the increased amounts of glucose within the liver. So what the liver does is it says, okay, if I continue to let this amount of sugar, of this amount of glucose stay here, I'm going to start having a real problem, and that could threaten life. So that's not going to happen. So what I'm going to do is convert this glucose into something called a triglyceride. Now, a triglyceride is basically a blood fat. So instead of storing it as glycogen within the muscles or within the storage depot, as it were, within the liver, it is going to convert it into a fat so that it can be stored elsewhere. And guess where it's going to be stored? On your hips, on your thighs, on your belly fat, in your love handles. That is where those triglycerides go. So if you have ever seen individuals with very wide girths, with very wide waists, those individuals are storing a tremendous amount of triglycerides, and they quite likely will at least have a fatty liver. Hopefully has not gone to the extent of disease at that point. So here is the key, just to keep it simple, is that higher glucose levels creates higher triglyceride levels, which will create higher cholesterol levels. So how do you get the glucose levels down within the blood? Well, what you have to do is watch the foods that will convert very readily and very much into glucose. And those kinds of foods are actually carbohydrate kinds of foods. Okay? So that's not just starches. That's what most people think. They think, oh, well, you mean that's bread and that's pasta, which is true. It does mean those things. However, other ones that are most commonly thought of as well is not necessarily the case. For example, potatoes, certain potatoes are not necessarily real high in starch. Now, that does not mean that they do not contain carbohydrates, which are broken down into glucose, because they do, but not nearly as much as other things. So basically what you will find is that anything that is not an animal protein, which is meat, fish, fowl, or eggs, contains, to a certain degree, carbohydrates, and those at some point, most of them will be broken down into a glucose and has the potential of elevating your cholesterol levels. So it goes back to diet, but not saturated fat within the diet. So on the next program of Health Alert, what we're going to be discussing is what is the deal about grains, about wheat and corn. You hear these individuals who are eating these Paleolithic diets. You know, is that a good idea? What's all the thinking around that? Is there any science that they're basing these opinions on and these ideas on? We're going to be discussing that next week on Health Alert. So I again invite you to come to our free health presentations. The one that we just finished up on this past week was 8 mistakes that healthy eaters make. So this was geared towards people who are already trying to be very healthy. So did you know that sometimes the very things that we do thinking that are going to be healthy may not be so helpful? In fact, one of them we just kind of brushed over in our discussion about cholesterol, and that is low-fat diets. How many people are out there eating low-fat diets thinking that that is going to make them healthy? In reality, that isn't the case. It is not going to help them in their health goals. So that was one of the things that we discussed. We discussed what kind of fats were very good to eat, what kind of fats are not good to eat. We talked about soy. How many people are using soy, various forms of soy protein, soybean oil in, quote-unquote healthy foods? many people who are trying to be really healthy use soy proteins, and we discussed that. Basically, soy proteins can be very detrimental to your health for two reasons. One, they may contain phytoestrogens that will imbalance your hormonal system regardless of what gender you are. And two, if they are not properly prepared, which I can tell you, the average soy protein is not properly prepared, no matter how wonderful it sounds. If it's not properly prepared, it contains an enzyme that really blocks the digestive capability of your intestine to take that protein up and utilize it. So you lose a tremendous amount of that protein efficiency. And at the same time, get lots of phyto, which means plant-based, phytoestrogens within your system that certainly aren't going to help you. If you're interested in learning more about that free health presentation, you can go to our Facebook page. That is facebook.com/natural.health.clinic. And I have actually uploaded the video presentation regarding that seminar that you can watch at your leisure. Well, thanks for tuning in to Health Alert this Saturday morning. And please tune in next week, and we're going to talk about dangerous grain.